Greetings from London. I'm Nitin Mehta, Managing Director for CFA Societies at CFA Institute. I'm sorry I can't be there with you in Moscow today, but I feel privileged to be part of this very special celebration. So let me start by congratulating all the new charter holders and all of you who've passed level 3 of the CFA exams. Now I know it's an arduous journey. I remember my own time doing the CFA program and taking the exams. You've probably dedicated 3, 4, perhaps more years of your life to the program. Along the way, you had to master some 10,000 pages. You probably spent 1,000 hours studying and spent at least 18 hours of your time sitting for those exams. And perhaps you still feel very guilty when you go for a beer or watch the television, but at least the exams are history and they're behind you. You should feel very proud of your achievement. Remember that only 1 in 5 people who start the CFA program actually end up with a charter. So in return for all that blood, sweat and tears, today we give you, well, a piece of paper, the charter. But that piece of paper conveys much. It's a declaration that you have the drive, the intelligence and the character to be counted as among the leading investment professionals in the world. Also, when you accept the charter today, you make a further commitment, a commitment to always upholding the very highest standards of conduct in your work and in your profession, a commitment to education and integrity, a commitment to fair market and fair treatment of clients always. These are professional values well worth espousing. Well, it was more than 50 years ago that the CFA program and the charter was an idea conceived by Benjamin Graham, that patron saint of investment analysts. Graham reckoned that a rating that would distinguish the analyst would probably serve him well, that it may get him a good job, perhaps higher pay. It may even encourage him to take a keener interest in the standard of his calling. Well, that rating has become the CFA Charter, and the world recognizes it. The Financial Times a few years ago said that the Charter was like an international passport for mobility. The Economist magazine said that whereas there are tens of thousands of finance degrees ranging from the useless to the excellent around the world, there's only one CFA. So those 3 letters have earned a very high level of distinction indeed. The mission of CFA Institute has always been to build the profession so that it's more than just a trade. Remember that the public at large expects so much more from a profession. In return for status, prestige, and autonomy, a profession makes a public warranty that it has in place some standards of entry, some standards also of fair play, some disciplinary procedures, and provision for continuing education of its members. Well, piece by piece, CFA Institute has been putting all these components together. And I think as a result, we're members of an outstanding organization that's growing around the world. Today, we have 120,000 members, 220,000 candidates for the CFA program spread across more than 100 countries, all the way from Miami to Moscow to Mumbai. And whatever the next 50 years may hold, I believe that our mission, based on education, on ethics, and integrity, will prevail and probably find an even wider and greater following. And yet, the global financial crisis that was unleashed back in 2008 has really shaken our industry and our profession to the core. What followed with the onset of the crisis was the discovery of all sorts of scandals, fraud, accounting shenanigans, and so on, which really eroded the trust of the public in the investment and finance profession. Perhaps what happened is in the years leading up to the crisis, the culture of finance became distorted. Perhaps there was too much of an emphasis on profits and not enough on professionalism. Perhaps too much of a celebration on entrepreneurialism and innovation rather than on ethics. Perhaps all of us individually place too much emphasis on building our careers instead of remembering to also build our character. Well, as a result, the trust has really been eroded. A number of surveys that CFA Institute has carried out with the Edelman Trust Barometer shows that financial services is among the least trusted industries in the world. So I'm glad that later on we're going to highlight the importance of ethics with an ethics award. I was reminded of exactly how bad things have gotten when I was recently going through Dulles Airport in Washington, D.C. And the immigration officer there asked me, he said, who do you work for? CFA Institute. What do you guys do at CFA Institute? He said. Well, I was a little tired, so I gave my standard cocktail party answer. And I said, well, we try to raise standards of ethics in finance. And the young man stared at me, slapped down my passport, and he said, well, try harder. Try much harder. And at first I thought he was rude, but then on reflection, I decided that he was right. We do need to try harder. We need to regain the trust of the people who toil and save and invest. We need to make sure that we share the proceeds and the returns on their investments fairly, that we also manage the risk appropriately as well. But above all, we should remember that we must put the interests of our clients first and foremost. Now, you might think, what can any of us individually do to regain the trust that's been lost during the recent financial crisis? And here I'm reminded by something that Mahatma Gandhi, that great Indian leader, once said. He said, if you want to change the world, you must begin with yourself. In other words, you must become the change that you wish to see reflected in the world. What that means is that each one of us has the responsibility to make sure that our behavior leads to trustworthiness so that the public once again trusts finance and investment professionals. Now, as you've entered the profession with your CFA Charter, let me suggest a few principles, a few ways in which you can make sure that you regain that trust that's been eroded. First, always maintain the very highest standards in your professional conduct. Do nothing to tarnish your reputation, because once lost, it's almost impossible to regain. In the words of Warren Buffett, it can take a lifetime of good work to build a solid reputation, and only a few moments of madness to ruin it forever. So don't do that. Second, keep learning. Maximize your investment knowledge. Let the charter be only the beginning. In fact, make learning a lifetime habit. Do invest in your own human capital. It's the best investment that you can make. It has very little downside and little correlation to other asset classes as well. As you know, CFA Institute has many opportunities for you to continue learning and keeping current with whatever area of professional practice that you're engaged in. Similarly, the local society offers many opportunities as well. Next year, we have the annual conference of CFA Institute being held in Frankfurt. That would be an excellent way of making sure that you do stay current and you're provoked into new thoughts as well. So there'll be a video right at the end of this comment. Finally, do something for your profession. Join, if you haven't done so already, the CFA Association of Russia. Being a professional means being part of a group who have similar goals and ends. Come together, as you've done today, to discuss issues of common interest. It's very normal and natural for professionals to do that. Make work a lot more than just something that pays the mortgage. Make it truly a vocation. Do perhaps even more. Volunteer for the CFA Association of Russia. Try and give something back to a profession that will nurture you for many years to come. So these three principles, based on ethics, on continuing education and raising the standards of your calling. They're the hallmarks of an accomplished professional, and I hope you'll pledge those principles throughout your career. You represent the future of finance, each and every one of you. So a lot rests on your shoulders. So with that, let me once again congratulate the new charter holders and all of you who have passed level 3 of the CFA exam. And I hope you'll enjoy the short clip that introduces the annual conference. I also hope to see many of you in Frankfurt next year. Thank you.
At the heart of Europe's largest economy, Frankfurt, a city with a 1,200-year history. The headquarters of the European Central Bank, the center of Eurozone monetary policy, and the venue for the 68th CFA Institute Annual Conference. Here you'll meet industry experts, gain insight into Europe's capital markets, discuss global financial trends, and connect to the nation's fastest-growing network of investment professionals, the CFA Society Germany. Discover this dynamic cultural center. Some of Europe's finest museums and galleries, theaters, and top international cuisine. And while you're here, explore the nearby countryside and enjoy the region's finest wines and delicacies. Visit Germany's most remarkable destinations, all within driving distance or just a short flight away. The 68th CFA Institute Annual Conference in Frankfurt, April 2015. Be there.